welcome back everybody. Today, definite big change of pace. I am going to refinish and rewire these vintage, or actually I should say antique, wall sconces. I bought these off of a scrapper. I paid 25 or so dollars for them. They were in terrible condition. The wiring was original and frayed, and the switches did not work. So I wanted to talk a little bit about people's general fear of fixing something. And I understand it completely. A lot of people have this fear that if they take a broken lamp or wall sconce or a washing machine for that matter, they're afraid to fix it because they feel like they might make matters worse or they might break it completely. Now, I just wanted to say, guys, it's already broken. Like, how much more damage can you possibly do? Like, if you take a step back and think about what your options are, let's just say you have a broken washing machine. Your option is A, try and fix it yourself. B, pay a service guy an exorbitant amount of money to fix it. Or C, just go get a new washer. So options B and C are pretty expensive options, and if you don't have or are not willing to spend that kind of money to do it, then you're only left with option A. If you can't fix it, you're stuck with option C anyways, which is buy a new washer. Or B. Was that B? Oh gosh, I can't remember. So anyways, that's the kind of motto that I approach when I fix things. Like, I know that I only paid $25 for these wall sconces, so the stakes are pretty low. If I break them or ruin them in any way, shape, or form, I lost $25 and I gained a world of experience, so I will never make that same mistake again. So anyways, guys, don't be afraid to fix your own stuff. It's really pretty straightforward. I mean, people like appliance servicers and electricians and people who rewire things or whatever, these are not, Harvard educated PhD students. I mean, these people are obviously very good at their trade, and they deserve to be paid an appropriate wage for their work, but it's not something that any reasonable, motivated person shouldn't be able to do themselves. It's pretty straightforward. So anyhow, back to these wall sconces. I start off by removing the electrical part from all of the wall sconce. So just rip out all the wiring. It doesn't matter. You're not going to save any of it. Take the switch out. It just unscrews. And then unscrew the actual light fixtures, which these were pretty tough. I had to put channel locks on them because they were really on there. So once you get those off, just put them to the side. That one I mangled up pretty good, so I had to bend it straight again. And again, don't be afraid if you break it. You can buy a new one. They're at Home Depot. They're a few dollars. So now you're left with the bare metal part. And I'm going to do the same to this one. And I'm going to fast forward through this so you guys don't have to bother with it. Once you're done removing the electrical part of the wall sconce, the next step is cleaning. Now, this is where you got to be kind of careful because this particular wall sconce is hand painted or whatever. So there is some original painting decoration on it. So I use warm water and Dawn dish soap. On really stubborn pieces, I use oven cleaner, and I don't recommend using oven cleaner on antique light fixtures because you could do a lot more harm than good. I have been using it for years, so I spray it on real quick. I immediately scrub and rinse off, and I usually get pretty good results. So the next step after you have it submerged in warm water is to take a razor blade, and I was scraping all of the wall paint that people painted over on this particular fixture. And once you scrape off the majority of the paint, you could take a damp rag and pretty much wipe off the rest of it. And so it's important to get into the little nooks and crannies, and you don't want to scrape the paint off. You kind of want to pick it off. It'll come off in clumps, and it will usually not give you too much trouble. Now, the cleaning process took me the longest. It was almost an hour total. So you definitely want to take your time, let it soak. Uh, Definitely be careful and maybe test an inconspicuous area before you go all the way in and strip it down to bare metal. So they're all clean now, and now it's time for me to rewire it. So I bought a rotary switch from Home Depot or Lowe's. I can't remember. It was about $3, and most of these rotary switches are pretty much universal. So you just want an on-off turn to turn on, turn off, and it definitely doesn't look original. But you know what? Somebody's just going to have to overlook that. I'd rather have a new safe switch than a old switch that could potentially short and shock me. So definitely not the best looking switch I probably could have found, but it was there at Home Depot and it was only $3. The next step is to run some wiring. So I'll explain to you in detail how to rewire this lamp so that you have excellent results. The first step is to put the lamp back together and get your light bulb sockets screwed back in. It certainly wouldn't hurt rather, to put a drop of oil on those threads so that those light fixtures screw in a little bit easier. All right, super fast forward, and it's back together. So I happen to have a roll of kind of old looking new wire. It's a cloth rayon covered, but it's actually a really modern wire underneath. It's just a standard stranded 18 gauge copper wire. A lot of people make the mistake, they think they want to put 12 gauge wire in a light fixture. You just don't need it. The average light bulb on a fixture like this is going to be 30 or 40 watts, and you're not pulling that kind of power to justify a number 12 wire. Number 12 wire is rated for 20 amps, which at 110 volts is, I believe, 2,200 watts, 2,200 watts. So it's way more than what you need. So anyways, don't be afraid to use smaller wire because it'll be perfectly fine. And if you're using LED bulbs or fluorescent bulbs, you won't even need the 18 gauge wire. It's absolutely useless to have such a thick wire. It's just going to make for a very difficult rewire. So when you look at your fixtures, you will find typically that the light fixture will have one gold screw and one silver screw. The gold screw is always going to be the hot. And just to make sure, you want to make sure that the gold screw is going to be attached to the metal tab that's in the very center of the socket. Now, the socket center piece, that's your hot wire. That's the hot. The surrounding, I don't know what you would call it, the part that the bulb screws into, that's always the neutral. So you just want to make sure that you don't mix them up, because it's important that you put the hot to the hot and the neutral to the neutral, because it's just important, trust me. So feed the wire through and hook it, and then screw it into the screw, and then run your wire through your fixture. And don't be afraid to give yourself a little extra. You could always cut them a little bit shorter, but you can't cut them a little bit longer. So definitely give yourself a few extra inches, and if you have to snip them afterwards, it's totally fine. I like to do the neutrals first, and then I do the hots afterwards. So I did it on the one side, and I'm going to run the neutral on the other side, like so. I'll get another fast forward through here. You guys don't need to see all that. Just make sure your screws and all your connections are nice and tight, and then just cut the wire to the same length as your other neutral wire. So next we're going to move to the hot portion of the light fixture, and it's the same as the neutral. Just pull the wire through and push it through the hole and hook it up to the hot side, which is typically the gold screw on the light fixture. And just be careful and take your time and do a good job. You can't really mess this up. It's pretty easy. You just want to make sure that you make your connections nice and tidy, and that you don't have straggler, wires dangling out of your connection that could potentially cause a short. So finish up the wiring, and at the end, you'll be left with a total of 6 wires. You'll have 2 neutrals coming from the light, 2 hots, and then the 2 wires for your switch. Now this particular wire, since it has that rayon cover, I don't know if you saw that little bright light, that I use a lighter to burn off the excess rayon. And so what I like to do to mark the hot wires is I take them both and I tie them in a knot together. I think that's an old timer trick, because a lot of antique light fixtures that I've seen, the hots were always tied in a knot, so you kind of know which one's the hot and which one's the neutral. So you want to take those 2 hot wires and you want to wire it to one end of the switch, and then use a wire nut. Make sure your connection is nice and tight, and then cover it with electrical tape to make sure that the wire nut does not pop off or come loose for any reason, and just to make sure that you have a nice, tight, and sealed connection. Once you're done with that, you want to get your neutrals all tidied up, and it's pretty simple. The neutrals, you're just going to tie them together, and that connection will hook up to the neutral of your your wall, what do they call that, your box that you're going to be mounting this to. So just run them nice and tidy. They don't have to be absolutely perfect, because there'll be plenty of space to work. And just twist them together and you're done. So now you're absolutely finished. So you leave the one side of the switch open, because that's going to be your hot coming in, and that's what you want to interrupt, is the hot side of the power. It will pass through the switch, and once you activate the switch, the power will be sent to the lights, and the neutral is the return path, and everything should work pretty simple. And there you have it, you're done. The fake candle thingy holders, I typically just wipe it off with a damp rag. You could always replace those, it's not really that big of a deal. I'm not going to, because I'm not going to get too underwater with these fixtures. I don't think that they're, they're nothing. They're really good looking, don't get me wrong, but they're nothing like super special. They're not like, designer brand or anything like that. So just clean up everything really well, and if you want to test it on the bench, you absolutely could. I have a little bit of a cheater cord that I use when I test my appliances, so I just, and I don't recommend this if you're not comfortable working with electricity, but mine just has 2 spade connections, and I just pretty much just shove the wires into the connections, and then I plug it in afterwards. Now, again, if you don't feel comfortable doing that, you shouldn't, but if you're comfortable working with electricity, then that's the way to do it. So there you have it. The light is completely redone. It actually turned out pretty beautiful. I probably scrubbed off 70 years of tar that was built up from people smoking in their house. And honestly, that light switch doesn't look all that bad. It kind of gets hidden behind all the decorations of the wall sconce. Now, what am I going to do with this wall sconce? I don't know. I'm probably going to list it on eBay, because I don't really sell those things out of my shop too much anymore. So if you guys are interested in them, obviously look at my eBay page. You could find me by going to eBay and searching Lorain Furniture. I'll probably try and put a link into the description once I get these things listed. So this is just me doing the other light fixture. I'm going to do it super fast forward, so that way you guys don't get bored to death. But it's just pretty much the same as the other light fixture. So don't be afraid to do it, guys. If you have an old light fixture and you want to rewire it, it's probably one of the simplest electrical jobs that you could possibly do. Just take your time and do a good job. And just remember, you don't really have much to lose. You could either have a broken light fixture sitting in your basement for 2 decades, or you could fix it, rewire it, clean it, and enjoy it in your home. I appreciate your guys' time today, and thanks for watching this obviously not washing machine related video, but I just kind of wanted to show you guys a fun little project that I do, kind of in between fixing washing machines. So thanks again, guys, and look out for the next video.